Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snider, and today we've got Alexander McCaig here again, the Billy Meier expert. I give you all that pressure.
Yeah, great.
On y'all at once.
I'm going to crack under the pressure.
I'm glad you could make it because I couldn't see you on Skype. I was like,
oh, I wasn't hiding. I made sure I was here 30 minutes early.
30 minutes early?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been chilling, making sure it was all set up.
I gotta not believe Skype because it said you hadn't been around for like 2 or 3 days or something.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's
not true. You know, I know you qualified me as an expert. I will make a comment. 2 episodes ago, I came to this realization last week. I mistranslated something on the fly from German to English. It's Billionen, and Billionen actually means trillion. And I'm almost positive I said the word billion. I have to go back and listen to it, but I just want to make sure that I have clarification on that for those who listen 2 episodes back.
So you do listen to our episodes sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. Mark.
They're quite entertaining.
Isn't that the point? You know, yeah, exactly. Learning should also be entertaining at the same time.
And make sure you give me the MP4s.
Like you bet. Don't you worry about that.
I like the visual aspect to it.
Yeah, I'll hook you up.
Pretty interesting. I have, this whole thing about striving is very interesting. Have you ever noticed a negative feeling when you fail to strive, when you make the decision not to strive?
When I make a decision not to strive, first of all, that's completely out of my nature, Mark.
Whoa.
And it is totally out of my nature. Most of the time, I do things that get either get myself in trouble or I get hurt because I'm testing and I'm stubborn. So I'm constantly trying things with my curiosity. And in that nature, that is a function of striving. And if I get hurt, okay, or something negative occurs from my testing. Yeah, interesting. It's just all of it leads towards my evolution, Mark. Absolutely everything that is going on. So I don't
you don't take a break.
No.
Evolution.
No, why would I? I got limited time in this fleshy body, Mark, so you might as well just keep pushing it to the limit.
That could be dangerous, though.
Yeah, it could. I mean, at a cardiovascular level, you'll probably drop, or if it's stress. But it's almost like the stress is more like a dull pain. It's not killing me, but it's there and it's causing me to adjust and do things I, otherwise wouldn't be doing without it, allowing me to grow, do things that are uncomfortable, right?
Mm. That's quite impressive because a lot of people aren't that gung-ho.
No. No. I just have a different personality, I suppose.
I noticed that your happiness really depends on your willingness to strive in a lot of ways. So if you're lazier one day, you usually can sense the lack of, there's more enthusiasm in your life if you're striving. There's more fun in your life if you're striving. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know what you're saying. I'll give an example. I don't like sitting around all day. It makes me feel useless. Useless. I could have had a better use of my time to learn. Like if I was just sitting, doing nothing, just eating and just like binging on TV, that just does not fly for me. I'm not one of those people that stay in bed all day. I cannot do something like that. It does not work. Does not compute, frankly, in my brain.
Hmm. That makes perfect sense to me.
Does it, Mark?
Well, I'm not 100% there, but I'm certainly seeing it's really amazing if you start thinking about all the things you did during the day, and some of that stuff, like sweeping out the garage, cleaning up the kitty litter.
It's always a nightmare.
Taking out the garbage.
Yeah.
That's everyday stuff. If you don't do it, then things get really bad.
Yeah, it piles up.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to. So do you ever notice a slight? You're always striving, so you never let yourself get to that point.
No, I'm very contemplative, like constantly.
Wow.
And I like doing things. I'm not
Well, I
trying
do
to
too.
distract. Most people will say, you're just distracting yourself. Why can't you relax? It's like, well, I can relax. But sometimes for me, relaxing is researching. Sometimes me relaxing is moving a boulder from one area to the next. Like, I enjoy that. That's very, it's therapeutic.
Wow. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
have you ever heard of the Arnold Classic?
Are you talking about weightlifting?
Yeah,
Yes.
It's called the Arnold Classic. It's the largest expo in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Largest sports expo in the world.
Yeah.
It's in Columbus right now, Columbus, Ohio.
Are you going to be on stage at the expo?
No, of course not. But if we go back many, many years, I still wouldn't be on that stage. But it's really interesting. I don't know. You probably haven't watched any of it.
No, I haven't. I when I was growing up, my father had a lot of those magazines on like weightlifting, so I got to see all the real classic bodybuilding. Like at the time when testosterone, when steroids were at their high, and everybody was trying to pull off the Arnold body shape.
In the 90s.
In the 90s, yeah, I had a lot of that stuff, and he had big collections of it. He was a very good weightlifter. I mean, we're tall, but I obviously can't put on that much mass. He put on a hell of a lot more than I did. But I do appreciate it.
How tall are you?
6'5".
No crap.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell on the video.
No.
You just don't know.
Do you know, I was just over in California. I just flew back from Pasadena. I was over there for a business meeting. Yeah. And these people had only ever seen me on camera. And when they came out to greet me, I was sitting on the couch waiting in the lobby of this tech building.
They didn't recognize you.
They were like, whoa. They take like 3 or 4 steps back. They're like, I didn't realize how tall you were. Yeah. A giant.
Yeah, I think in classic bodybuilding, I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but the classic winner this year was a guy that I think is 6'5". Vickers was his name.
I saw. Didn't Arnie give him the trophy? I think I saw a short clip of it.
So you have seen it.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, Mark. I'm not hiding from it. I'm not. I don't live under a total rock.
I tell you what, I strived a lot for this show, and it took on its own life. I was responding to the impulse. Let's talk about the impulse to strive.
Mm-hmm.
There is an impulse, isn't there? If you can pay attention to those impulses.
You want to give an easy example?
Sure.
Okay. Do you get an impulse to eat something because you're hungry?
Or because you just want to eat.
Okay, but do you get that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so your body wants to sustain itself to survive. It's striving to live, right?
You're damn right. That's what it is. It's survival, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's progression within it. When you strive, it's to almost perfect yourself further, whether it be with mathematics or the way you speak or how you handle yourself in conversations or how you maintain your yard or maintain your thoughts. You try to perfect those things over time. You try to become more wise. It's for human beings, it's very attractive for us to see someone that has fantastic facial symmetry. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, me and my wife, when we walk around, like say we're in New York City or another major city, and we see like another person, man or woman, with perfect face symmetry, there's a high amount of respect for something like that because you can see that through the process of breeding and all those other things, that is a very attractive, relatively perfected human form. It's like finding a unicorn, right? And it's really cool. But genetics are striving, our mental states are striving, all of these things are occurring all at the same time. And then within the striving are all these other elements that allow us to strive. Okay? Adaptation, dealing with cause and effect, dealing with the opposites. All of these things come together to push that core impulse of our life mark to do something better. It's almost like trading in a car. right? You get a car, you want to trade it in.
So if you're not responding to that impulse, it's almost like you're going against creation.
Correct. Absolutely.
So you're really setting yourself up for getting run over by the train or whatever you want to call it.
The train of life.
Yeah. It's interesting. All right. Let's dive into this. And I'm going to start out with a Bible verse, as I always do.
Oh, here we go. That's my favorite book. My favorite book.
And then compare it to what Billy calls anti-logos.
Uh-huh.
Remember, I gave you a little warning.
I already know. Don't you worry. I follow instructions.
The anti-logos is described the following way. It is the child of evil, the child of ruin. That is the deadly opponent against knowledge, wisdom, and truth, and the opponent against love, peace, respect, and harmony. Mm-hmm. And I believe this anti-logos is really doing damage today. And I think our society is nearly unraveling. And 1 John said something about this. 4:5, it says, "They are from the world, and therefore speak from the viewpoint of the world, and the world listens to them." Now I would say, they are the New World Order, also called by Billy the Secret Dark Order in the Goblet of Truth. And this viewpoint is a particular attitude or way of considering a matter. So why don't you take a few seconds to absorb that? And do you have any take on that at this point? Or
I do.
Okay.
Christianity wasn't the first religion. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not by any means. And before its development, there were groups that worshipped other deities that felt like they had their own power spectrum within life, or their small occult groups, whatever it might have been. And that ideology of power, that ideology of control, having might over another human being, has been a very attractive theme for select groups of people over the course of time. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if we think about this in a logical sense, many people over the course of human history didn't have the ability to read or write. It was all speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones who figured it out quickly and were born into repeat families or repeat social circles had an advantage over the rest of society in the world at that time. Okay?
Repeat. What do you mean by repeat?
What I'm saying is that say you go back 2,000 years. Actually, even further. You go back 3,000 years.
Sure.
You're born into this world. It's total roll of the dice. You get born into like aristocracy, a royal bloodline, or you're an absolute peasant, just regular old John or Jane. Okay? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. John or Jane, accounting for 99% of the global population 3,000 years ago, had no ability to read or write. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you get born into a family that has large amounts of power, large amounts of control. You have the ability to read and write. Okay? You're not illiterate by any means. Now, those values get passed down in very small groups. And when those small groups, being the power center, have the ability to design religions or smaller occult groups out of their knowledge, that can be attractive over time for people that are stuck in those social circles, right? Or if you're born into families like that, it just becomes normal. We're more powerful. We're better than anyone else. We're the Rockefellers, right? Or the Rothschilds or whatever it might be.
Right.
So those elements carry forward in a logical format, right? In doing so, it took a long time for the general public to become literate. And by the way, the whole world still isn't literate. But as they became literate over time, we start to recognize things. And so these people who had control, who were literate first, they still impressed their might and their thinking, and they had the ability to amass resources at an accelerated rate because of their, I would say, intellectual capacities at that time. And that value mark was stored over centuries, and these families held on to it very, very tightly. And as they go, Yeah.
About the Illuminati.
I'm not mentioning any names because I
Right.
don't know for a fact. I
You're
could
being
give examples.
generic.
Yeah, I'm just being generic here about the sense. Now,
Sure.
these are getting passed forward. The education, the power, the resources, all of those things, the ideologies, the occult mindsets. Say, for instance, these people get into banking. Say, for instance, I know. Say, for instance,
They are.
I know. You know what I'm doing. Say, for instance, these families get into media. Okay.
Yeah.
Say they get into, to the entertainment circles. Say they get into government. They have an ability to say things in control, not for the positive benefit of society, but for the maintenance of their might, for the protection of what their families have served and built over centuries, very, very long periods of time. So when you tell me that verse, that when they speak, the people listen, that's because that's all the people listen to. They don't know that there are other options.
Right.
So that's how I circle back to it. So could you read the passage one more time so those listening?
1 John 4:5. They are from the world. They speak the viewpoint of the world, and the world listens to them.
Right. They're not aliens. They're nothing special. They're just people who feel like they set above the rest. Okay, they think that there's just like global hierarchy, and they live in that world. And when people listen to it when they speak. That's how I'm interpreting that passage.
That's a pretty good interpretation. I think that's pretty legitimate.
Okay.
This is some very dense material.
Mm.
Then there's the world is as it's translated as the world, but I believe it's the Greek word cosmos. So, and I think, okay, let me move on just for a second. I'm going to move to the second part of the definition of anti-logos. It is the force of evil, the 666, which is against the truth of creation, against the truth of the spirit, and against the obedience to the laws and recommendations. Should I continue? Do you have a comment?
Well, I mean, I have tons of comments. So everyone's always, they call it the mark of the beast, right? 666.
Right.
It was on people's foreheads.
Or on their hand, right?
Or on their hand. Yeah. It goes back deeper before Christianity. It's an idea from almost like Babylonian era. There's the Chaldean numerology. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I remember you talking about some kind of numerology associated to certain passages that Billy has written.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It sure is.
There's an old history of people watching the sky, watching humans interact, recognizing the patterns of nature. Okay?
Right.
With that, within the patterns, within our names, within these movements, numbers are associated with these things. Simple. Very simple stuff. All right? It's a measurement of our world. Numbers have to be associated with it. Now, there are some numbers that have an energy associated with them, given the patterns of those numbers, how they cycle, how they move throughout nature itself. That can be, albeit chaotic. And this 666, this anti-logos, right? This non-structural, chaotic thing has an energy to it, which is very non-striving. Does this make sense?
Very interesting.
Here, let me give a simple example here. You know my name is Alexander, correct, Mark?
Right, exactly. Right.
When we speak it, it makes sense. It has a flow to it. There's a structure. There's numerical associations to my name. In Chaldean numerology, it's a lot of 2s and 5s. All right? But if I came up with a name or a structure, right, of a word that didn't make sense, well, then the way the numbers come together, they don't have that rhythm. They don't have that balance of their own natural math. It's chaotic. It's almost like the energy of the name wasn't built to strive. It wasn't built to carry a value with it. Okay? It's like a math equation that doesn't work. But in this instance, and this is the last thing I'll say, and you can jump in.
Okay.
The 666, this anti-logos, is the polar opposite of all these beautiful things that are in balance. But it's a requirement that it has to exist.
Explain.
Everything in this universe has an opposite, okay? Everything in this creation has opposites to it. It's a law of opposites or contrariness.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have logic, you have anti-logic or unlogic, or in the English sense, illogic.
So the problem in our case on Earth is the anti-logic is probably in charge.
It's more pervasive. That's correct.
Yeah. Please continue.
So for us as human beings, we, like I said, for a vast majority of time, we weren't super learned. And this idea of creational laws and recommendations came and went, or they became soiled by religions or all these other aspects that said, oh, this is what it really meant. Now, because we don't follow them, this natural balance, these laws and recommendations of nature, our society is chaotic. It is unlogical. Okay, it is unbalanced. It is unhealthy. It is mightful. It is all of these things that are non-evolutive. So the pervasiveness of the anti-logos, not as like some entity, don't think as it like a human being, but like overall the consciousness thought patterns of humans of Earth is very illogical. And so overall,
it is.
Yeah,
it
so
really
overall,
is bad.
that energy, that 666, the anti-logos, is an age which we are currently living in because we're not paying attention. We're not reasoning things for ourselves. We live in states of cyclical belief and pseudo-beliefs, okay, or pseudo-thinking is what I mean. And with that, we perpetuate this non-thinking, which is not good for us in our evolution. It's against what we're actually born to do. Bang.
Bear with me.
Yeah, no problem. So you went over the first two pieces of the definition. What's the third element in this?
Well, let me step back because you just said some really profound stuff. So we have non-logical thinking, and yet we're a fairly high-tech society. That is a bad combination, I would say.
Our society is not high-tech.
No, I mean, not like in the big, not in the play iron sense of the word.
Well, always think, Mark, in the grand schemes.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're making a comment that is
not completely true.
It's apples to oranges at that point, right? Just compare it all at the same time.
It's maybe I can say it in a more accurate way, because I think we're now starting to develop technologies that really are not logical in many ways.
No.
They're like, they are the force of the 666. They're not reasonable. They're not consistent with truth and harmony and a bunch of things. Sometimes they're just complication for complication's sake.
Oh, yeah. You and I know that very well, Mark.
What do you think of QR codes, for example?
I think
they're trying to store more data. I mean, what they're just creating.
I think it's a way to tag things. That's all. It's associating a visual image with information. It's like early steps in these things. I know that Japan had it first, but think about what AI is doing. People are fanatics about it. It's one of those things that says, I don't even have to think for myself anymore. This can buy all my groceries for me. It can plan my entire day. It'll tell me how I should feel about myself. That is a horrible technology at the moment because of the way it's designed.
Yes.
And people are radical about it. Radical. And if you say anything about it, they fire back like, you're the heretic. You're the spawn of Satan because you don't use AI. You're slowing down the evolution of humanity. It's like, no, your use of it, the primary algorithms, regressive algorithms that train that AI, they're doing damage. Do you not see that? No, of course not, because you haven't thought it through. You just use it blindly.
Well, that's the problem, is because so many people trust I wouldn't say the government, but it's not that simple because it's also big companies and the whole 666 system,
Yeah.
the anti-logos, they trust it verbatim. You know what I'm saying?
I don't even know if they trust it. I don't even think they think about the word trust. I think they just are conditioned to use it, Mark. I actually don't think they have a concept of trust.
See, okay, this is the problem that I ran into years ago. They are being conditioned to use technology, and I resisted being conditioned to use the cell phone. But in order to exist in society, you almost have to.
Yeah, that's what I would call a necessary evil.
Yeah. I hate the term necessary evil, but without it, you're going to have big trouble, today.
I mean, in the end, it will lead to more advanced communication mechanisms. But if we didn't have it, we'd be relying on like telepathy. But that seems too difficult. It's too much concentration for people.
Well, if we did have real telepathy, that would be fantastic.
I feel like I'd be throwing up everywhere. People slamming their thoughts into me just willy-nilly. I feel just mentally sick. Yeah,
I do.
I can't turn the radio beam off. It just keeps coming at me.
But it kind of does that anyway when people live in big cities, right? They're getting slammed by the thoughts of other people.
Oh, we're all getting slammed right now. Everybody in our local solar system is getting slammed by the thoughts of planet Earth.
Do you think there are other folks in our local solar system?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in the sense that they're floating around in like spaceships, right? It's not like the International Space Station is excluded from getting slammed by the insane thoughts of people on planet Earth.
So what are your thoughts on this latest trip to the moon that supposedly was by a commercial company or whatever?
Big whoop.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, what are you doing there? You going to go put some plastic bags on it?
You know, when it landed, it tipped over on its side.
Brilliant. Put some more trash on it.
Symbolic.
Yeah.
It's kind of a symbolism.
Oh, man, our $30 million piece of equipment is now a piece of lunar trash. Excellent job, human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did, anyway, I'll continue. You wanted a little different definition part 3.
Yeah, because what you sent me was sizable.
Yeah. Well, didn't I send you just a link?
Mm-hmm. Did you? I read it all. I mean, it looked sizable on my cell phone.
It is sizable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll read Logos definition part 3. The it is he in the embodiment of the mighty ones, and lawlessness, lust for power, bloodthirstiness in the anti-logos. There's probably more, but that's where I stop.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go crazy. I feel like the way you're describing this, I just saw the movie Napoleon. Have you watched it?
Oh, Napoleon, no, but
it had a lot of those elements in it. Yeah, with
did it?
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix did a great job. But many of those elements you watch over time when people get into these positions of power, Lee. Not only the level of bloodthirst, but almost unfounded ideas that
Zelensky, the guy from Ukraine, he fits the bill.
He fits the bill. He would fit the bill. And there's many other people like that,
right?
But you find leaders that perpetuate themselves over time. But you have to be careful because in a sociopathic nature, people will say, "Hey, I'm not like that. I'm a good person. I'm trying to do this for you." And then bang, the second you put them into power, you throw it right out the door.
Yeah. But the whole Ukraine war is anti-logos, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Any type of war is like that.
Right.
You have no respect for life if you think you need to go to war. If settling something requires killing another person because they won't come to terms with your ideology, that is insane. It just doesn't even make sense.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes. You know, it's when you're younger, well, there's mental age too. Let's say mental age. If your mental age is younger, a lot of times you don't even understand what's really happening. Like, for example, if we go back far enough, we could talk about the Vietnam War,
Sure.
which on the surface level, we were told we were fighting communism.
Mm-hmm.
But were we just really testing new weapons?
Yeah, I mean, we could have been. This is post MK Ultra and all those other things that were going on. And it was originally a police effort, but any old port in a storm to go somewhere and just scrap up more rubber resources from a country that helps out Michelin Tire Company. I don't know. What do I know? The French were there first, and the French said, "These people, they don't want to follow Catholicism or Christianity, and they're beating us up, and they won't work in the rubber factories." Okay. Why is that the United States' deal? But we made it a deal because it said communism. You got to fight it. Fight what? Somebody's idea on how they want to live? Come on. Dumb.
The Vietnam War was strange. It's very strange. It reminds me, but if you look at all the wars, they each have their own level of strangeness. Like World War II, we refused to allow the Japanese to have the oil they needed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what basically started that war. They were fighting in Southeast Asia and against the Chinese and all that. They were running out of oil, and we were, we kept certain oil stores in certain areas that we stopped selling it to them. You know what I mean? So that started the whole World War II. We got our aircraft carriers out before the bombing occurred. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We got them all out. Yeah. They knew what they were doing.
They always know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA set up the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
I wouldn't either.
We need a good excuse to go to war. The economy's not doing well.
There you go.
It's the same old rap sheet that we know every single time. And it's boosting the economy at the expense of human life and human understanding. It is absolutely asinine, Mark.
I can't believe they sent our F-16s over there to Ukraine. I mean, that's top line stuff. They sent our Abrams tanks over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it can all be reverse engineered now. All they got to do is destroy one. Who's going to drive that material? Who's going to fly those planes? U.S. pilots or
NATO pilots?
NATO pilots.
I got a great idea. Let's ground all that stuff. Let's not fly it. Let's not poke anybody or agitate them. Let's just chill out. Everybody just chill. Just for a minute. Let's think about this.
Right.
Oh, man. The whole idea of just like nuking each other is insane. Now, I live in New Mexico, right?
Right.
I'm at the epicenter of where nuclear technology put into bombs, made its footprint in human history. I've stood in the center of the Trinity test site.
Did you really?
Mark, it is horrifying.
Is it? What does it look like?
It has bleached the earth. The ground is depressed in a curve.
Okay.
There is radioactive glass called, trinitite glass all over the ground. Okay.
Whoa.
There's no flora. There's no fauna.
Oh.
And it's a non-existent scenario. It's like someone turned the sun on the surface of the planet. Dumb. It's so bad. It's so bad. I think it's like people are like, yeah, we got all the nukes. They're low yield nukes. I don't care how low yield the thing is. Do not blow it up. It is absolutely horrendous because it's not the effect of just blowing up a bomb for destructive power. Okay. It's the electromagnetic pulse wiping out hospitals, systems that we're reliant on, servers. It's radiation that gets emitted into our atmosphere that drifts everywhere and destroys our crops and infects us and kills us at a cellular level. It blacks out the sun with nuclear fallout. It is a horrific piece of technology, And it is, just to me at a personal level, dumbfounding that one, we still make these things, and two, we even consider the use of them.
Yeah.
I honestly do. It is the most lose-lose game we could ever play with.
But we still do.
Right. And I don't know, honestly, frankly, I know there's a lot of generals out there, especially in our military industrial complex. How many of them have actually stood at ground zero? I don't know. Probably not that many.
Not many.
The
one thing I've learned about in the past year or two is that a lot of our leaders, they're just not as bright as we thought they were. We'll just say that.
I would have never thought they were bright.
Yeah. I tried to put that as respectfully as I could. I couldn't think of anything else, but
there's no need to be cautious about speaking the truth about those that are just abusing things.
You know what else? In terms of nuclear energy, we have hundreds of, places where we are generating nuclear power that all they do is plop the spent rods into water.
It depends on the type of reactor. So you have pebble beds, heavy water. There's many different types of nuclear reactors that are out there.
But
rods, which lasts a while. Go ahead.
Don't they but in terms of when the rods are spent, most of them use the simplest kind of technology where they just put it in water. I mean, there's really we have not come up with a safe way to really store that stuff, have we?
No. All right, look. Oh, gosh. Nuclear reactors, they create waste. Okay, it's a fission reaction. We're splitting things in, alpha, beta, gamma, all these different radiations come out of it. Okay, very, very, very fast, and they move through a lot of material. So when something's spent, it still has a half-life. It's still radioactive. The overall fission energy, the heat generated through the process to get the turbine to spin, like to create steam to move the turbine, right? Or if you're using a commercial-sized thermopile. Do you know what a thermopile is?
I've heard that term before.
Thermopile is an electrical device that you can surround around things that generate heat. And there's a difference of poles of essentially this current that goes through it, and the heat gets translated into electrical energy. Now, when this stuff gets spent, this fuel, because a fuel is required because something is being used, it's essentially being eliminated. In the phase change effect, there are radiations that continue to leave this spent fuel. Now, the way we store it, we put them in lead casings. It's a special type of water. It's deuterium water, right? So it's heavy water. And the heavy water helps slow down the spread of the radioactive material. But we store these things in the ground, deep underground, in lead, in drums, stored up, closed off, and it sits there, pouring out radiation forever. We have one in the southeast corner of New Mexico. And I've driven up to Idaho, and they have another one just sitting out there, in the middle of some big hillside in Idaho. And all we do is we just keep taking this fuel and packing it into the earth. And again, it just continues to leak out more and more of this radiation. So as a technology as a whole, it's extremely dirty in a sense. Is that clear, Mark?
How are they keeping it cool? Or are they?
They don't really care. It's underground, and you take the spent fuel and you put it. It's not still doing its fission reaction, so it's not as hot. Yes, there's an energy to it. It's not like some radioactive cobalt that's just going to destroy you. I think it's cobalt, the one that's always hot. But when it's spent, it sits there, and it's a half-life. Breaks down over time on its logarithmic scale or whatever it is. The temperature drops and all those other elements, but they store it in a thing where it doesn't escape too much of these radiations, right? Using things like lead and burying it deep underground.
Could it burn through the earth?
No.
Could it live? It doesn't have that much power left.
No, not that much power left. I'm first of all, I'm not a physicist. I don't know of any materials that emanate that hot of a radiation? I don't. I really don't know. All I know is that I have many friends that work in the national labs, and all of these things around nuclear material. I mean, they got a job to do, but they also don't like how the stuff gets used.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's two elements. You got the research side, and you have the weapons side of the labs. They know where these things are headed. They see how this stuff gets used. They know it, and nothing about it breeds happiness, Mark.
So it is also anti-logos.
Well, because of how it's being used.
Right.
If it was pure research, fine. Go through all the different radioactive elements you want. But the second you weaponize these things, nothing about that breeds anything good.
So we just buried it and we don't think about it and hope it doesn't do any damage.
No, it does damage. They know it does damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's always emanating radiation. We have these signs up in the desert. It looks like who's the painter? Who's the painter that did the melting clock?
Oh, Salvador Dali?
Salvador Dali. They took the remnants of Salvador Dali and remember the screaming face?
Yeah.
So they put that on a sign, like a yellow sign. And it's like the horror, like to say, like, don't go in this area. And it's like they have those like posted everywhere. It's just highly radioactive and, blah, blah, blah. And those signs of the screaming face. Like they know how dangerous it is.
Could they, you could almost say what they're doing is illegal, right?
Oh, I would say it's poisoning the earth at the highest order.
Yeah, poisoning the earth, I would think would be.
We should not be allowed to use radioactive elements, Mark, until we know how to anti-radiate them. Don't use something unless you know how to actually neutralize it. But we just use these things with no capacity or understanding for neutralization of what that thing might be. Like, oh, that's got a good use. Stick it in a bomb. Put it in a warhead. Great. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Great.
It's irresponsible, right?
Oh, it's not. It's beyond irresponsible, Mark. I don't even. It's so anti-creational at the highest order. It is so unloving at the highest order.
So the anti-logos, for sure.
Yeah.
Where logos is the appeal to logic, it appeals to audience's sense of reason or logic. The logos is a good word. It means speech, utterance, message.
Mm-hmm. It's an old Greek word.
Yeah, it's a great word. So the anti-logos is when we start doing things like burying nuclear waste and things like that. Sometimes we don't see that it's evil.
Oh, they know. Oh, no. We know.
I know they know.
Yeah.
But maybe your average person out there doesn't.
Well, no, because they haven't thought about it. They're not contemplating it. They don't live next to nuclear waste sites. You know what I mean? They're like, I live in a city, or I live up in the suburbs of Massachusetts. Like, there's no concept for them about radioactive waste. That's not a thing that goes through their mind. They're not considering like the atmosphere. No, they get in the car, go to work, come home, watch TV, eat their food, repeat the process, absorb the news, don't think, over and over and over. But what? You start saying, hey, we got a nuclear waste issue. It's like, no one cares. They don't care. They got so much other stuff going on. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind for them.
John 1:1, the Bible says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Greek term logos we translate as word, principle, thought. The anti-logos is what you just described, the going to work and shutting off your mind and spinning your life away.
No, it's not even spinning. Spinning means you have some movement. It's translational. Creation spins. That's a very non-spinning thing.
We even had this anti-logos in the very ancient past.
Oh, really? Share, Mark.
Yes. Contact 238.
Ooh.
They attacked foreign planetary systems, bestially murdered millions of people, or clapped them in chains and enslaved them.
What'd you say? Beastily?
beastly.
Mark of the beast. You want to know why? Animals have just pure instinct-based consciousness. And if you go and you say, I'm a conscious, thinking, rational human, and I start doing animal-based elements, first of all, that's insane. 2, you're not respecting your own nature. And then you're putting other people in chains, arresting their free will. Don't you respect your own? Like, what are you doing?
You know what's so strange about this? These were Nocodemians people.
I don't find it strange.
Well, Nocodemian was faced with the choice of leaving his people to degenerate into universal monsters or command a halt to their murderous and power-hungry deeds.
Guess what?
This is like Star Wars in the ancient past or something. Right?
No, it most definitely is, but Nocodemion clearly, and Nocodemion, for those who are listening, is the spirit form, very old spirit form that's been around in this creation. It respects free will at the highest order, Mark. Mm-hmm. It will teach, but it will not inflict a judgment upon people. It would never do that. And I think that's why it chose to leave and left people to their own devices.
That was an earlier personality of the spirit form of Edward Albert Meier, correct?
That's right. That's right, Mark. You're the expert.
No. The first human forms recognized in some of the oldest planets of the Milky Way system, I believe, was about 9 to 12 million years ago. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, you're doing great.
So, Billy has received some of this information from the Patale spirit plane.
Oh, you want to get into that?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I like how you pose it as a question, and you're like, all right, I'm going to tee this up. This is definitely going to be a conversation piece. Mark, I know I'm figuring your nature out really well.
There you go.
So, us as human beings, we are empowered with a piece of creation inside of us. It's this bodiless, non-physical energy center that allows us to exist. Okay? Now, as we evolve over time and the energy becomes more massive within us of this spirit form, it begins to take the place of the body. The body is no longer needed into the future. Okay, it's just the body serves a vessel for learning. Now, as you take those steps in amassing more of that energy, that wisdom, that love, and I think we talked about this on a previous episode, as you amass more of it, you move yourself into frequencies of creation which are more fine. It's almost like you become so good at tuning in to the most precise radio station, multiple decimal places out, like that precise, okay? And when you're there, you can get more information. Now, here's an interesting point. If you can tune into something that exists in something so precise, it has already taken the time to amass much wisdom and energy to live at a radio frequency which is super fine. This thing you call the Patale level, Mark, sits in this super fine realm. And at this point in time, Billy Edward Albert Meier, in his ability to use spirit telepathy, can communicate with this really specific radio frequency at the Patale level. Is this making sense?
Yeah, I mean, didn't Billy rise up to the Arahat Athrasata and then come back to physical form?
There has been, true? From what I understand, you can't ask me if it's true. I don't know, but from what I understand, Billy's spirit form left the need for a physical body. It achieved very high, fine planes of creation. Mm-hmm. And it always knows it has a job to do. So it squeezed its big, mightful, massful, creational self back into another physical vessel. Because our Earth is fucked up and it needs some guidance. At a cosmic level, Mark, our thoughts are smashing into things and creating problems. So, from what I understand, from what I've read, it's only the first time that something from that very high plane has chosen to actually go backwards and put itself in a physical body again.
That might be profoundly uncomfortable if you've lived through all that.
Yeah, it probably would. Or it's probably like, whatever, done it before, just doing it again, no big deal. Things at that level live outside of time in a sense. So whatever, I'm coming around for another 150, 200 years. Big whoop. But it knows that it is doing a job of teaching these greater values because it's already tuned into those high frequencies.
Now, this is a bit off topic.
Okay.
But isn't it true that Billy, through the power of his spirit form, or maybe the power of the might of his thoughts, I'll let you decide which, he can move heavy objects?
It's both.
It's both? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, everything we exist in, Mark, is an idea. Are you tracking so far?
Yeah, we'll be hitting the break in a few minutes, just to let you know. The music's going to interrupt you at some point.
Yeah, so you know what?
Hold that thought.
I'm going to hold the thought before we even get into this, all right?
Well, okay, wait a minute now. We still got a few minutes left. So you're getting ready to talk about Billy's ability to move these heavy objects?
Right, heavy objects or form metals in his hand.
He can do that?
Yeah, he can warp them, right? There's, I said form, not just like making them exist, right? I don't know if he could do that. He probably could. What do I know? But changing their phase state to like make them maybe soft or pliable through the energy of his body, that's pretty incredible, right? You see it with Qigong masters.
Yeah. Like take a quarter or a silver dollar and just bend it like it's nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're super hot to touch, probably.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Now, I can't even get into it, right? It's actually going to take a minute to like walk through this. I want to do it. I want to walk us through this like step by step. But yes. Well, first of all, why are you bringing that up?
It's part of my friggin' striving here. I don't know. I was writing this stuff down. I don't know. I kept going over things and finding more things. My striving was out of control.
It's a good question, and it's going to bring up some profound elements around how someone should view their life, right? Or view their existence around things which are material. It's not the fact that lifting something is like lifting something heavy outside of someone's natural strength. Like, oh, wow, that's incredible. It's a miracle. No. It's the element of why it's possible to do that is the most important part, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are you starting to feel what you getting what I'm putting down right now?
It's just like, wasn't there some mental power in some of the movements of some of the parts of the Great Pyramid and things like that?
Yeah. Yep. That's correct. Like telenotic or whatever it was.
Yeah. Telekinetic, telenotic.
Yeah, telekinetic, right? Essentially the movement of physical objects using thought.
And I've heard that in terms of the pyramids, they move some of that stuff with sound.
Sure. I mean, if you're advanced enough to move stuff with your brain, I mean, brain in a relative sense, I mean, you could probably do anything you want at that point.
They talk about some guy, what is it called? Coral Castle in Florida. Is that our music?
That's our music. Right. We can get into the Coral Castle. We'll get into lifting heavy objects after the break.